Hey everyone, Alex from Ford Mustang Garage. Just wanted to do a video today to kind of go over some of your engine bay wiring questions. I get a lot of questions about how to diagnose your oil pressure gauge and your temperature gauge and fuel sending unit, and why those aren't working. Mostly get a lot of questions as far as how these go on here. So what I find is most of these old cars that I come across are going to have your wiring is going to be cut and kind of hacked up, and so the original colors are not going to be true anymore. So what I'm going to show you is how I kind of figure out which one of these is which. So sometimes it can be kind of a guessing game, but you got your three major deals here. You're gonna have your temperature sending unit, your oil pressure sending unit, and your ignition coil. So in order to find that out, I like to use my test light right here, connected to the ground, and with the key on, I'm going to get on my oil pressure and temperature sending unit, I'm going to get a pulsed voltage if everything is true and correct behind the instrument cluster. So the sending units that go, the wiring for the sending units for the oil pressure, temperature, and the fuel sending unit are going to get this pulsed voltage. And that's to keep your needle from being erratic. For example, on your fuel gauge, if you're going up a hill or the fuel sloshing around the tank, your needle won't be bouncing all over the place. So this keeps the needle steady. So that tells me that's for one of your sending units. And you come over here to the other one here. Let's take a look. There it is. Pulse voltage. So now I know I've got it narrowed down to the two that are for oil pressure and temperature. The one for the ignition coil is going to be a constant. And keep in mind, this is with the key on. Key in the on position. My wire for my ignition coil is going to be a constant voltage. So that's that. Now, how do I figure out which one of these is for oil pressure and which one's for temperature? Well, you have another way of testing these, and you can take your test leads here and you can connect to ground. Okay, for this test, I like to have the key off because I don't want to burn up the gauge inside the cluster. Okay, so now this wire right here I have connected to my test lead, which is connected to ground, because your oil pressure sender and your temperature sender are nothing more than grounds. So you have power being supplied to the sender, and the oil pressure on a gauge will apply more ground with more pressure. Same goes with temperature. It will apply more ground with higher temperatures. So if we put it straight to ground, that's going to be obviously a very easy path for the electricity to get to ground. And then we can go inside the car and see which gauge is going to work. So we're going to put our key on. We're going to watch our oil pressure. Whoop, there it goes, straight to high. I don't like to run that. I just turn the key on and off real fast, because you don't want to put straight ground to your gauge for a prolonged period of time. You can burn up your gauge. So now we know that the lead we're connected on is your oil pressure feed. This is also a good way when it comes to diagnosing. If you have an oil pressure gauge that's not working, you can test to see if you're getting the voltage. You can ground the circuit. If the gauge works when grounding it, then you have a bad sending unit and that needs to be replaced. But if you're not getting your voltage, then you need to look, probably behind the cluster here to see if there's an electrical problem back there. So that is how I do that. So I've narrowed it down. This one here is for like oil pressure. This one here is getting pulse voltage. That's the only other one getting pulse voltage. So that's for my temperature. And the one that's getting constant voltage is going to go to my positive ignition coil right there. So, quick tips today. We're about ready to fire up this 66 resurrection project. So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you next time.